Sorry, Pal, and I'm an empowerment coach with Polish Your Sparkle. Today, we're talking about the 7 steps to staying on top of things when crisis hits. And I'm going to start you off with one of my favourite quotes, which is by Brian Tracy. And he says that life is a series of problems, occasionally interrupted by a crisis. And another one I hear a lot is that we're either in crisis, coming out of crisis, or about to go into a crisis. And I'm not quite sure who to attribute that to, but it basically sums up the fact that crisis is something that does happen in our lives, and we do need to be able to stay on top of things when that strikes. So the first step in our 7 steps is to determine that you are in fact in crisis, and not just dealing with a really big problem. So, the days immediately following the death of my daughter, I noticed in my newsfeed there were lots of FML statements on people's pages about, washing machines breaking down, and, the car got a flat tire, and I left my wallet at home, and, my life is terrible, and I hate my job, and, this is just the worst life ever, or the worst experience ever, and even though, having just had my washing machine break down, it's like massively inconvenient and frustrating, and, it's not easy to deal with, and it feels like a crisis, but it's not. And these people genuinely felt they were in crisis and were reaching out, but it wasn't a significant life-changing event that they needed to deal with. They just needed to think about some solutions. So be sure that you are actually in crisis, and before you start throwing lots of energy at it. So the second step is to know your systems in advance. Obviously, we can't anticipate crises. That's sort of part of what makes them so devastating. But if we have some systems in place just to help manage our day-to-day living, then it makes it easier when things do go really badly. So I always like to think about the 3 Ds: do, dump, and delegate. When crisis hits, you really need to get clear about, well, do I even need to do this? Maybe I can dump it. Maybe I can delegate it to someone else. And that's really, really important. When genuine crisis hits, it's amazing what you initially thought was essential for you to do or essential to get done that's just not important and can just slip and go and be let go. So do the 3 Ds and do, dump, and delegate. Step 3 is track your numbers. This is really important because crisis really messes with your head, and even the most detail-orientated person is going to, you're going to slip up, you're going to forget things, you're going to make mistakes, and sometimes they're really big ones too. So, track your numbers: money, dates, times. You're going to miss appointments and lose things if you don't. I nearly missed a sales target by $12. I even thought I was tracking those numbers, but being so scattered at the time, it just was an easy thing to overlook, and nearly missed a sales target by $12. So track those numbers, and it will help you stay on top of things. Which brings me to my next point, which is have a spotter or an accountability buddy, someone that's going to be able to pull you up on things and help you pick up on those mistakes that you are going to make. Like I said, I nearly missed a sales target by $12. I didn't. And I didn't miss that target because my director gave me a call about 20 minutes after I had placed what I thought was my final order for the month, to say, hey, great order. Did you realise though? And so I was able to then sort of pick that up and do something about it. So have those accountability buddies, those spotters, if you will, to really help you, because you're going to make mistakes and you need someone to back you on that. So then the fourth one is know your limits. This is really important. When crisis strikes, it puts huge stress on your body, and you need to listen to it. Sleep and diet are not negotiables in this case. You really do need to actually stay on top of those things. Your body is going to crash otherwise. Mine certainly did. I wasn't looking after myself as well as I should have been, and I had, breakouts and colds and infections, and I was put on antibiotics. I've never had an allergy in my entire life, and got an allergy reaction to something. So your body is under stress. You can't afford to be complacent about this. You need to stay on top of things and look after your health, and listen to where your limits are. That's absolutely essential. 6 is that you need to cultivate and utilize your emotional supports, and that doesn't necessarily mean other people. It can be just your own emotional supports. So, things like a super ugly cry in the bath or shower, or even with a really trusted friend, can release a lot of pent up negative energy and just kind of get it out. And I find it also, certainly in me, it just triggers the need for sleep, and it sends you to bed when you probably should have been there in the first place. So it's good to get that out there, and in a safe way. Genuine crisis, people want to help. Like, they really want to help you, and sometimes they don't know how to help, but they really want to help. So let them, go back to step 2, delegate, give them things that they can do, practical stuff. I just can't think about dinners for the next week. Can someone help organise that? And let them organise it, and bring it around. So use those supports. Step 7 is an interesting one. Become the observer. I suppose it's sort of a bit Buddhist, if you will. So it's really hard to get distance between yourself and your problems when you're in crisis. And so I'm not advocating cold hard detachment, but instead practice a kind of a catch and release policy. So observe the emotion, let it come, let it turn you around and turn you upside down if need be. Observe that though, and then just and let it go. Catch and release. It will, you're never going to avoid emotions if you're in crisis, but you can kind of manage them and not be consumed by them. So you'll notice that when I was talking 7 steps, it's about staying on top. It's not about staying in control, because you're not going to. But these things will help you, stay on top and ride it through the crisis that you are experiencing. So I hope that helps, and if you've got any comments, then feel free to put them there, and I'll answer any questions if you've got them. So thanks.